A very, very good afternoon. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. And welcome very happily to somewhere I have never drunk wine before, at least not in a professional capacity. I've had several glasses in years gone by on holiday, but never at an actual wine estate. I am in Plettenberg Bay, and you might be thinking, Dan, how much have you had to drink today? You don't make wine in Plettenberg Bay. You go on holiday and you stand in the queue at Woolworths for 3 hours for the last loaf of sourdough in summer, and that's what you do in Plettenberg Bay. Well, no, that is not the case, because over the last number of years, Plettenberg Bay has become a small but increasingly cool stretch of the South African wine landscape. And you might remember it wasn't that long ago when we actually had some Plettenberg Bay wine on the show in the form of Newstead, headlined by some bubbles, but with a couple of still wines as well. And Sue from Newstead, who kicked things off here in 2006 and produced the first wine in 2012, was a very welcome guest. And you might remember, probably not, but you might just, that I promised her I would come and visit. And it's taken me a while, but I'm finally down in Plettenberg Bay. And so today, a big chunk of our show is having a look at how this area is beginning to feature more prominently on the South African winemaking map, and not just for the bubbles with which it initially caught the eye, but with a range of other wines. And it won't just be Newstead today. We're also having a look at some wines from Kay and Monty, wines I discovered accidentally while on safari in Welgevonden up in the Waterberg. So it's an interesting show already, but on top of that, we're going to meet somebody who by rights shouldn't really be making wine, but he is in between his surfing career and delivering wine that is so good that the guys at Great Domains, who are incredibly discerning, had one taste and said, yep, we love this, bring it on board. We want to represent you in Johannesburg and get your wine out to the world. I got the note from them earlier this week, and such was the excitement in the team at Great Domains that we thought we'd pop them straight on the show this week. And so they, together with Newstead and Kay and Monty, are our headline act for this week, as I spend a little bit of time down in the Plettenberg Bay area. Before we meet all our guests, though, and drink some terrific wine, including a wine from Newstead from 2015 that won an extraordinary award, let's have a quick catch-up on the latest wine news. All right, so what is this? This is the Potluck Club. Now, if you have been into Cape Town and into the biscuit mill, the old biscuit mill, there's a very good chance you will have had an opportunity to sample Luke Dale Roberts going a little Asian. Not completely, but there's a great sense of Asian fusion to the Potluck Club, which had loads of small plates. One of those restaurants where you have a look through the menu and they're small plates, so you think, well, I'll just order the 5 or 6, and after 3 of them, you realize you're stuffed and you've ordered far too much food. Well, it's no longer Cape Town. It has shifted and is making its way up to Johannesburg. And next week, the Potluck Club officially opens. I'll be there on Tuesday night for that official opening. And from there, the chance for everybody to come through and try out one of the great modern South African chefs, the man behind so many of our terrific restaurants, places like the Short Market Club, which is now operating in Johannesburg as well, and the iconic Test Kitchen, may it rest in peace. So if you're up in Johannesburg from next week, look out for the Potluck Club. And it's not just terrific food, but a wine list that has always been exceptional. And the sommeliers have a dab hand at explaining exactly which wine will sit nicely with which food. So pencil that one in for a visit as of next week. Then Culture Wine Bar. This is a big one coming up next Thursday. I will be down in Cape Town for a takeover of Culture Wine Bar. So what's happening from 6 o'clock? I will be behind the bar working, throwback to my university days, alongside a terrific collection of wine people. Barine Sauls from Tessa Larsdale. I was drinking some of her Pinot Noir at lunch today. We'll be pouring that very same Pinot Noir. We'll have some vintage 2016 Cabernet Franc from Warwick to be poured as well. Saki Mouton is in town with his Misfit, and that's a Chenin-led white blend that's got people like Greg Sherwood dancing in the streets. We'll be pouring some rosé, and it's not a normal rosé. It is a Semillon Cinsault blend. And if it's got Cinsault in it, it could only be Alexander McFarlane from McFarlane Wine, so she'll be pouring that. Also, the first chance in the city to drink some wine from the Element House collection. Erica Obermeyer has made that Rhone-style red blend, a beautifully elegant and stylized red wine that will be poured by Manuel Cabello, the head sommelier and assistant general manager at the restaurant and hotel that is Element House. And we will also very coolly be featuring some wine from Ciabello Senatla, the Sevens player, the Blitzbox star, now on the wing for the Stormers, and he is going to be pouring his Idiom, the 7 varietal blend played for the Sevens team that he's made with Idiom and that we've had on the show before. So we'll all be at Culture. It's free. Come and join us. You'll have to pay for the wine, but free to get in. Come and say hello, come and meet us all, and come and drink some great wine. First Thursdays in Cape Town. That's next Thursday, the 4th of May at Culture Wine Bar. And then throwing forward to the 17th of May. Now this is a daft night out. 35,000 Rand it's going to cost you to have dinner with myself and Roland Peens. Now, I think that's a perfectly reasonable fee to have dinner with the two of us, but we'll throw in 1 or 2 bonuses. It is a fine wine Strauss dinner, and that means on that particular evening, you are going to be drinking wine from people like Chateau Petrus, from Pavie, from Latour, from Chateau Yquem. We're wrapping up some 67 Yquem on the night. We've got some 82 Latour. We've got some Penfolds Lagrange from 1976. Siciliana Unico from Spain, one of the great Spanish wines. We've got a bit of Italian in there, and it's a selection of wine that's all going to be on a Strauss auction coming up in the next year or so. Limited seats. I think there are only about 12 of them. 35,000 Rand is a large amount of money to pay, but for the quality of wine and the chance to drink names like Romani Conti. We've got Romani Conti poured that night, along with Petrus and Pavie and Latour and Lagrange. It's a terrific night. We'd love to have you along. Details, just drop a note to Roland, Roland at winecellar.co.za, and come and join us for a very, very exclusive night of fine wine and the food of Chef Ransley Peterson at the Old Oak at Royal Johannesburg. That's the 17th of May. Right, so there we go. You are now no longer in the company just of myself, but also somebody who's been on the show before. Sue, I did promise you.
Welcome to Plett.
Oh, it's overdue, and I apologise for that. But lovely to be down in an area which, for so long, we've known has been the holiday destination of choice for South Africa. Great space for polo. You've got some lovely golf courses. The beaches, as I saw today, are terrific. But more and more and more, when I speak to people in the wine industry, the name Plett is popping up as somewhere that's no longer just this novelty area where there are people making a bit of wine for fun, but wine that's being taken more seriously. And it seems to me a wine area that's taking itself a lot more seriously in terms of becoming somewhere that's really established as a wine area.
Yes, in fact, Plett is mostly grower wines. So the people that own it normally grow the vineyards and have the wine made on the property. So we're much smaller than our counterparts in traditional Cape areas. And I think it shows. Yeah.
Tell me about this as a wine growing area. We've had this conversation to a degree before, but yes, a reminder for those people who don't really know Plett. Holiday destination extraordinaire, but also a growing wine region. What makes it an area that you are able to, along with a growing number of other winemakers, produce quality wine here?
I think it's the attention to detail as far as in the vineyards, everything's hand-picked, hand-selected. But I think the area benefits from the cooler climate, much cooler than Francois or Stellenbosch. And we have the sea breezes that come through. We're about 8 kilometers from the sea here. But where we farm our Sauvignon Blanc, it's actually about, we're sort of right over the ocean. And then you're getting the minerality and sort of seashells on that. And I think the soils are Table Mountain. And yeah.
So you've got a space where you've now been making wine for a while. You're just over a decade into it. What was it that said to you that the dream that so many of us have to make our own wine is something to actually translate into a reality here in Plett?
Well, we were here for polo, and one of our friends flew us over, and we picked the area from the sky and decided it would be nice to put vineyards on. It was just we were thinking of aesthetics and a change and a challenge from sugar farming. And it was always just a hobby. We never knew that it would be sort of a 12-hour day.
And how much, when you saw it, sugar farming, as you've said on the show before, it's a nice, fairly stable thing. You kind of know what sugar does.
Yes.
There's not too much difference to sugar cane. Wine's a completely different proposition. How seriously did you think this would develop?
We never really thought it through. We obviously it appealed to my husband's farming capabilities because he's very particular about what he grows. So the add-on businesses we never really thought through. Those just kept coming and kept growing, and we just kept walking through the open doors, But we did think through about how seriously we were going to take the growing part of it. Yeah.
Was there a point where you went from, well, this is quite a cool hobby, the grapes look nice in the photos in the background, everyone on Instagram thinks they're lovely, to, hang on, this wine's actually quite good?
Yes, I mean, we had decisions of sort of conversations about what we would do if it wasn't drinkable. And as you do when you
sell it to the Australians.
Well, we decided actually that if anything wasn't good or great, then we wouldn't bottle it. So right from the outset, if we ever were going to have a harvest that we weren't happy about, it was not going to end up in the press. And consistency actually has probably been one of our best assets in a way that year on year, it's produced above 90, between sort of 92 and 96, our sparkling wines. So.
And a big part of that has been the more than just assistance, the guidance from a rather established winemaker. You have in Anton somebody who really knows what they're doing.
Yes.
How did Anton become part of this project, and how much has he helped you to establish where you are today?
Well, Anton has the same ethos that he wants to make the best wine he can make, and he was part of the Brahmin side. We were the second farm in Plettenberg Bay. And he was already working at Brahmin, and it made sense for him to start and make for quite a few of the wine farms that were coming through. Initially, we did make our wine at Brahmin, like some of the others did, Kay and Monty did, and we had our tanks there. And but Anton's always said that it makes such a difference having good quality grapes that you're working with. We hand select, we net them. So yeah. And
clearly some terroir that speaks to grapes, which leads us rather nicely to our second guest, who is from this part of the world. I'm going to come back in just a moment to talk to you about a particular wine that we're going to drink, and very happily so. But I'm really excited to talk to a viticulturalist from Plettenberg Bay to explain to me just what makes Plett tick from a wine perspective. Lloyd is the viticulturalist at Kay and Monty, a wine brand that I discovered when I went up to one of the rare earth properties in Velgevonden and met this brand called Kay and Monty that I'd never heard of and drank slightly suspiciously, and it turned out it was rather nice. Lloyd, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on as not just a Plettenberg Bay wine champion, but also a viticulturalist for this particular area. Give me a sense, Lloyd, what is it about Plettenberg Bay that allows people like yourself to turn this particular land into a really natural home for great grapes?
Good day. How are you? It's good to be here. Thank you.
And I think we're struggling a little with Lloyd's connection there. Lloyd, just asking you to give us a sense of the terroir of Plett and why it works so well.
Well, Plettenberg Bay has been lucky that we have some good landscape. As for Kay and Monty, we've got some good loamy soils that really do well with the varietals that we have planted. We've got about 75 hectares of land under vineyard. We've got some Sauvignon Blanc and some Chardonnay. Like what Sue has just mentioned to you, we've got a cooler climate that does very well with all the white varietals that we have predominantly been making wine out of.
Tell me a little bit about this Kay and Monty brand then, because you've got terroir that clearly works for wine, and Sue said exactly the same. What is the history of Kay and Monty? Give us a bit of a story to this particular brand.
So Kay and Monty is a brainchild of one great man who has passed on now, Mr. Chick Lee. He was also an avid polo player. He came down, obviously, in December to play polo, and then he fell in love with the place. The idea was to buy a farm and establish a professional polo estate. In those days, Bramon was already established Anton, and he bought the second farm, which is now Kay and Monty, where the vineyards are established. And there's a popular saying that goes around in Plett that every second polo field has been turned to be a vineyard. So along the Redford Road, we have a number of vineyards, a good 20 to 35 hectares. And it only made sense that we had land and to make vineyards out of them.
Which has developed now into wine that, as I said, I first tasted at a game farm up in Velgevonden. Give us a little bit of an introduction to the wine that you make and why those are grapes that you guys have decided are suitable for Plettenberg Bay. So
initially we had around 4.5 hectares of Sauvignon Blanc, varietal that used to make a Sauvignon Blanc, dry white wine, and then we had a Chardonnay used to make our MCC. In recent years, we've got 3.5 hectares of some red varietals, which was a very hard leap of faith. Now, Shiraz and a block of Carian. So this is the famous blend, the SMG, Shiraz Mourvèdre. In these cooler climates, we've had to endure some difficulties, but due to the love and the passion that we have to make some good wines out of Kay and Monty, we have managed to have a second vintage of our SMG in season.
And that's probably been one of the great surprises for me, is finding some red wine in this part of the world. For me, it's always been bubbles and possibly a little white or rosé tagged on, but red wine has made an appearance. In fact, I have some of the chick, which is just warming up ever so slightly. And we're going to taste some of that in just a second, as we are the bubbles of Kay and Monty and some of the wine from the team here at Newstead. Before we do that, we have one other guest on the show who's not in Plettenberg Bay. He's actually in Jeffreys Bay, where he's been surfing 17 hours a day for the last week or so, and taking a little break after bursting onto the scene with a wine that I first heard about via the team at Great Domains, who got hold of me and said, Dan, you have to try this. This wine is seriously good and seriously exciting. And it's not even from a winemaker, it's from a farmer, as we call viticulturalists a little more informally. Francois Hanekom, warm welcome to the show. And apologies for interrupting the surfing up in Jeffreys Bay, but lovely to have you on the show to tell your story and what its story it is, because you're a viticulturalist. You guys are supposed to be driving your buckies around farms and making grapes grow and not doing anything like making wine. How did you become an accidental winemaker?
Hi, Dan. No, it's not an accident. It's a I would say a hobby that turned out to be a great. I don't know what you call it. It just turned out great. So what happened is It started with the beginning. I'm a viticulturist, as you said. We manage a lot of great vineyards in the Helderberg area. We've got a business that's managing high-end vineyards, and one of our clients, he trades in wine. He's a European guy from Italy, from Italy, and he took me on a tour in Burgundy with me and my wife went with him on to Burgundy, and I thought how difficult could that be? That these guys only make 2 cultivars, and but it basically blew my mind. When I got there, it was crazy. It's just amazing to see these people's passion for wine, and also the complexity of their wines. I couldn't believe how 2 cultivars can keep you so busy. And basically what happened is meeting up with all these amazing winemakers, I just saw all of them have got a real tan like we've got in South Africa, like a Peaty Brook tan. And I realized these guys spend a lot of times in the vineyards. They work their own vineyards. They spray it, they prune it, they know where the differences are. And then one day the penny just dropped. We were at just like all the other sellers, they explained to you, I've got a 5 rows of vineyard here and 20 rows there, and my aunt's got some vineyards around the corner, and all of that we swap and trade in the industry and in the family and make wine. And then one day we tasted this one barrel, and it was amazing. And the next barrel was like totally different, but also great. And I said, yes, but this must be from your aunt, or how does this work? He said, no, 20 meters. And no, it's not possible. And he explained to me the mother rock of the limestone and all of that. And I realized, but we've got the same in South Africa. We've got all these differences in one block. And in South Africa, a lot of times the whole block of Cabernet or Cabernet Franc goes to one tank, and it just disappears there. All these differences in the block. And I said to my wife, she's like, man, the Helderberg is great. And I think I know where those pockets are. I know where those small differences are in the vineyard. I want to do that. I want to go and, like I say in Afrikaans, pikkie oor uit. I want to go and pick out those little special parcels and make wine from those parcels. And that's what we did. We went back and we I've got special relationship with these people that I manage the vineyards for, and I asked them, can I please buy some grapes from you guys and just select some parcels, and we made the wine by doing that.
It's almost a surprise that nobody has done something similar before from a viticulturalist perspective, because as much as the winemakers tend to get so much of the credit for producing wine, it is you guys out in the vines, in partnership certainly with the winemakers, who have the best understanding of what's working, what's great, what's really standing out. And so you have been able to go out and do exactly this and translate all of your day-to-day hard work and knowledge and understanding of and relationship with the vines, pluck the very best and create something that's clearly not just very special to you, but is taking the very best of the Merlot, the Cabernet Franc, and the Cabernet Sauvignon of the Helderberg to deliver a really unique but really impressive wine.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's not my core business. So I'm privileged enough to really do small parcels. We really make very limited amount. And a friend of mine from the Swartland, he made mention of that. He said, hey, Francois, you've got something different than the rest of us. We've got time. You've got access to these vineyards. You've got actually like a labor staff that can help you with. Because, for instance, we destem all the bunches by hand. It sounds crazy and it looks amazing. It looks like a punnet from Woolworths, if I'm allowed to say that, from blackberries. And we just do everything very, very, very precise, but we've got the time for it. And it's not our mainstream of income. So it's such a privilege to do it that way. I don't know what to say more about it.
Well, it's allowed you to develop a wine called the Samaritan, and we'll get a bit more on why the name, and then have a sense of what this wine is like from Francois in a moment. But we're now, 20 odd minutes into the show. We haven't had a glass of wine yet, so we need to have a look at that. We need to do so with a really special wine, because the one that we are drinking here, which is adorned with stickers, a 5-star from Plett for a wine from Plett. That should say enough already. But there's more than just that, because this won a particularly special award.
The Amarum Challenge.
Yes.
And it won the aged class for sparkling wines that have been on lees for more than 7 years.
And that means you are sitting up against guys who've been making Cup Classique for, in some cases, well, we know 51 years, 52 years that we've been making Méthode Champenoise officially in South Africa. That's not just a great endorsement. It's probably a bit of a surprise, in all fairness, for you guys when you know
extremely.
This is what people think of your wine.
Extremely big surprise, but it's been wonderful.
You've now created this image as Plettenberg Bay as a home of Cup Classique.
Yes.
How much have you seen that develop commercially? Are you getting more and more requests from people? Are they interested in buying and stocking and listing your wine?
Actually, Happy, our head waiter, has just told me that one of the restaurant's owners in Plett are stocking 1,000 bottles. They're stocking it and they're keeping it. I know Rolls-Royce and Goodwood, I've got a meeting straight after this with them. But the bad news is I actually don't have any. I'm waiting. So that's been our biggest challenge, is that, yes, there are people wanting to stock it, but we are having to pre-order and pre-request. So before the next lot gets disgorged, we will have to allocate.
Speaking of disgorgement and this style of wine, if I have a look at the bottle, here we go. I see at the back, very simply, it just says wine of origin, and then it says, or at least the bottle, so there we go, sparkling wine.
Yes.
So can we call this Cup Classique?
Absolutely. It's made in the traditional French method.
All right. And obviously it's made in the Cape, so it speaks to Cup Classique.
Yes.
And then what about the volumes? Because Plett is still a smallish area. How much wine are you making, and is that going to grow?
We're making 45,000 bottles.
Oh,
obviously that varies every year, but we don't want to grow. We want it to stay small and special. So it's all about quality for us. And we hope that this wine, I mean, the original 3-year on lees got a gold at International Wine and Spirits, so of this 2015, and we're hoping to just get better and better.
What about the nature of it? Is it all non-vintage or some vintage, and how does that fit in?
It's all at the year. Everything's 2015, which is interesting that this area is allowing for the consistency. So year on year, that consistency is coming through.
So you're getting a very similar each
very
year.
Similar.
Which is unusual, because we get a lot of vintage variation in the more traditional areas of the Western Cape in terms of wine. All right. It's not all you make, though, because, yes, you've got bubbles, but I've seen a couple of still wines as well.
We do a Sauvignon Blanc. As I mentioned earlier, we are actually also harvesting from a vineyard close to the sea, and then we are blending that. This is the first year we've actually blended that with our Sauvignon Blanc from Newstead. And we pick that on a couple of days, over a few days, because even though we are only 11 hectares, we find that we are able to pick that over a couple of days, because some places actually sort of get, need to be harvested later.
Yeah. All right. So Sauvignon Blanc picking up, and then some rosé as well. What goes into your rosé?
The rosé is actually a second press of our sparkling rosé.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So nice collection. And are you happy with that? Is it the 4 and you're good to go? Or,
4 and we're good to go. Yeah.
Now, I've heard this from, I remember Duncan Savage telling me when he started Savage, he was only ever going to make 2 wines. I think he's on 11 at the moment. So I'll wait and see if this holds, if you stick to 4.
I think it's about just focusing on, that precision.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We are branching out in other areas like macadamias and honey and sugar and all sorts of things like that. But for wine farming, it has to be.
Happy.
Yes. We also do a Pinot Noir. which we've actually used all our Pinot to the rosé, and we keep promising that we'll do a still Pinot. Perhaps that'll be the next one. Yeah.
I'm going to ask Lloyd the same question for now, even if it's not just you. As an area, do you feel there's scope for other grapes, for a few more reds, for a broader offering of varietals? From
So Malbec, Malbec was one of the wines on the list for another red, and Cisnot, that was one. But the cooler climate varietals,
the gentler. All right, which is not entirely dissimilar to the nature of the blend that is the Chick. So let's jump back to Lloyd. Lloyd, you've got a number of wines that we are sampling here. And I think we've actually lost Lloyd. So we're going to try and get him back in just a moment, because we have amongst the wines this particular one from Kay and Monty. That's their 2017 Blanc de Blanc. So a little bit of bottle age to a Chardonnay bubbles. But while we wait to try and see if we can get Lloyd back on, let's head back to our surfing farmer in Jeffreys Bay on holiday from his day job in the Helderberg. Tell me a little bit about the name, first of all, Francois, and the Samaritan. What inspired that?
Yeah, so Samaritan, we call it that because that's how I feel the industry has treated me. It's like this Bible story about the Samaritan. About 15 years ago, I was retrenched, and 15 of my fellow farm workers with me, and there was a guy called Martin. There's a guy called Martin from Benningen who I knew, and he asked me, but why don't I come and manage his vineyard? And then just after that, another guy, Andre Liebenberg, he was making movies at that stage, and he said, "Nah, he's just too busy. Can't I come and manage his vineyards as well?" And then Paul Wallace, he consulted some vineyards in Stellenbosch area. He said, "Can't you help some of these people manage their vineyards?" And just a lot of people are helping me. And then from that onwards, just kept on going. It's just people helping each other in the industry. It just felt good to be part of that whole process of helping people helping me. And so on the wine side, the same story. As I said, Johan Immerhoffen took me on this tour in Burgundy. It's crazy what I learned there. And when I came back, this other friend of mine from Swartland, he said, "Yeah, you would do this," and he gave me this recipe how to do it. And then just one Sunday, he phoned me and said, "Hey, open the farm gate. I'm here at your gate." And he popped in with 3 open fermenters, and he said, "Hey, you're gonna start making wine now. Those dreams need to start." And I just thought, yes, like this is really like how I feel that the industry treated me, and I would like to, just in honor of that, call it the Samaritan, about people helping each other. Same with the label. The label is beautiful. I love the label, and it's the brainchild of a guy called Ruan Etzebet, who's a great designer, and he phoned me. He said, "Yeah, he did taste the wine at Evans Place, and he thinks it's a great project, and he likes the name, and could he design the label for me?" And I said, "Yeah," but he said, "What's my idea?" And I had this idea in my head about the Helderberg in the background, and this guy on the donkey. And he said, no. Now, this is about people helping each other, and if you help somebody, you don't take him by the hand, you take it just above the hand. You don't want that hand to slip. You're really going to pull him out of whatever his problem is. And I said, "Yeah, I like it." And then he designed this beautiful label. So yeah, there's a whole ideas about people helping each other. And as I said, when I got retrenched, I never thought in my life things will grow like it did. At that stage, we managed 3 farms. We're managing our 3 farms. We have the privilege to employ a lot of people on a permanent base, and yeah, just life's good.
It's extraordinary what you recollect there, because if I think of anybody who's been a Samaritan in my life, it's a guy called Martin van Meunigen, because you won't know this at all, Francois, but the guy who helped you out is the father of my best friend growing up in Zimbabwe. And he was somebody who, for the last 30-odd years, has been my second dad. So that's a wonderful coincidence.
Amazing.
Who is just salt of the earth and has helped out so many people, and you are clearly one of them. So, and Martin is a great Samaritan to so many, and he's helped you to give this ethos to this particular wine. Tell me a little bit about the wine itself. We've got the Helderberg. We know that there are a few places in the world that can match the Helderberg for quality of Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Franc is just on the up and up and up in South Africa, and Merlot continues to be a grape that we probably don't appreciate as much as we should for the quality. You've brought all three of those together. What is it giving us in Symphony, Francois?
Okay. So basically, you mentioned it earlier, I'm not a winemaker. So it just proves to you the quality of the grapes in our area. It's all about the grapes. It's not about my skill or anything. We make the wine in the old garage that is in our play room and surfboard warehouse for all my kids. We destem the berries next to our motorhome under just an afdak. I don't know what you call it in English. So it's there's no skill levels involved there. It's just amazing grapes. So yes, Bordeaux cultivars work really, very well in the Helderberg. There's a guy, Jaco Engelbrecht, he just once showed me just on a GIS study he did how high our radiation in the Helderberg is, and that's all to do with the aspect of the mountain. So the angle that the sun reaches that mountain is just perfect for Bordeaux cultivars. And then, of course, the proximity to the ocean. I had it earlier on this all this chats about Plettenberg Bay being close to the ocean, and it's true. The moment you've got the influence of that huge air conditioner and the stability of temperature, it does play a huge role, especially on our Bordeaux cultivars. We are very blessed with a lot of different soil types in the Helderberg. The Cabernet Sauvignon is on a granite patch, which there's not a lot of granite in the Helderberg. The Cabernet Franc is more typical Tukudu oak leaf, nice deep red soils. The Merlot is let's call it on the Cape Town side of the R44. So it's part of the Helderberg region, but it's not in Helderberg Mountain. It's more towards the ocean side of it. It's decomposed granite with coffee stone base. So yeah, at the end of the day, great site, great grapes, and it's easy to make wine from it. Actually, I didn't make it. I just baked the cake.
It's one of the qualities of so many of our winemakers and viticulturalists. They thrive on understatements and underselling just how much they do. Where does this go from here then? What's the next step in the wine journey of Francois Hanekom?
Yo, no, I didn't actually think that far. At this stage, we made it. 2019 was our first vintage. We released it in December this year. We make every year 1,100 bottles. Last year, it was a crazy, beautiful vintage. I just couldn't help myself. I brought in a bit more, so last year I've got one more barrel in the lineup, so it's going to be 1,500, 1,600 bottles. We just want to keep going what we're doing. We're selecting the best grapes we can possibly find. I just need to keep my hands on it. And the thing about it, these spots is they change. Because of as nature goes, in a dry year, you might need to change your spot to just a bit high up the hill or lower down the hill, or depending on the year. I'm privileged. I'm working through those vineyards basically every week, and I can see the changes.
The Samaritan story has just begun. I think it has a long way to run. While Francois was talking, I'm not drinking his wine. I will be soon because I've placed an order. But what I am drinking is some of the Sauvignon Blanc from here at Newstead. And the sense of balance that it has to it is, I think, probably peaked by the fact that it's got 2% of new oak to it. You think 2% in a wine, that's nothing, but it is enough to just play down that acid, to give it a smoothness and a sense of balance. It's so important in Sauvignon Blanc, which is a great, can just be a little abrasive and green from time to time. Now, Newstead's had a big role in bringing Plett to the fore. It's also had a big role in bringing people in Plett to the fore in the wine industry. And Lloyd, if we look at Doug Lund from Newstead, he had a pretty big role in your wine education, your wine development, and taking you to where you are today, Lloyd. We are struggling just a touch with Lloyd and his connection, unfortunately. So we're going to have to try and get a better connection and bring him back. So let's jump back in to the International Group Global CEO and Head of Tasting at Newstead and talk about where Plett is now as a wine area. I mentioned earlier, there was, I think, initially a bit of a novelty sense to Plett. So, oh, look at these guys in Plett with their polo ponies and their beautiful houses. They're going to pretend to make a bit of wine as well. And then we started to discover actually you could do it rather well. And it's picked up from there. Where do you see the next kind of 5-10 years going for Plett as a wine producing area?
Well, we've heard of quite a few people buying into this area and planting vineyards. So I think it will always be small vineyards, boutique wines, and we'll see.
With a group of really interesting people, and I wanted to ask Lloyd about that, but we're struggling with his connection, so we'll ask you instead. Doug, your husband, had a big role in bringing Lloyd to where he is as part of that education and training process.
So Doug actually planted those vineyards with Lloyd. He was part of the Kay and Monty team that were working in the fields, and the two of them basically learned. And Doug led the team there for quite a few years.
And it's grown up really well. And you will look at Lloyd, we look at Anton, yourselves. We've got the guys from Bo Constantia now up here.
Yes.
Just the nature of wine in Plett, it's kind of got a bit more serious and professional, hasn't it?
Definitely. We may be small, but we take it very seriously. Yeah.
And in terms of the people who are coming in, I arrived this afternoon. There were guests making their way out as I arrived. Your tasting room was pretty full. As a wine destination,
Yes.
Is it getting bigger, or is it still mostly people who are down here on holiday enjoying the beach and discover accidentally there's some wine as well?
I think a bit of both. I think Plett actually has everything: the beaches, the trails, the wine. It's just added a beautiful aspect to what Plettenberg Bay offers.
And what you offer here, just for people who think, okay, this sounds pretty cool, the wine sounds nice, I might drop in. Can people come and have a meal here?
Yes, they have a meal. We're actually part of Dan Plan's top 20 restaurants in the country.
She says casually.
Well, I battled to even call it a restaurant because somebody came riding in on their bicycle and said she was hungry, and I gave her a cheese platter. So it kind of started like that. And then everybody started booking, and every day I think just another week. But we sort of feed about 150 people in a day in season. And every table's taken until May. So it's just been phenomenal. The support we've had from everybody around has been amazing.
And then staying here, that's something you can do as well.
Staying here? You mean the vineyard and sustainability?
No, in terms of accommodation, can I come and stay?
Yes, you can stay here. This homestead is available for rental. We've got cottages that people rent, and we have people flying in from all over the world for weddings. So it works really well. We're thinking of putting in more accommodation.
If you are planning to pop the question in the next few days, this might be the place to come and do it. Before we wrap up the show, let's go back to Francois on his surfing holiday, which we are unceremoniously interrupting. In terms of the wine that you've produced, you've given us a really good sense of this particular wine. The Helderberg speaks to exactly the varietals you're playing around with and really enjoying, Francois. And now that you've got the bug and the wine has been made, can you see a whole range coming through? And is there perhaps a goodbye Francois viticulturalist, hello Francois the full-time winemaker to come at some point?
No. We're just going to stick with this one wine. We do make every second or third year a wine we call our huiswyn that we give to friends and enjoy the braai. But we're only going to make one wine, and that's called Summertime. And the Summertime is about finding the best parcel we can basically find in the Helderberg and put it in a bottle. That's it.
Which is exactly what you do. And what about, just in closing, that sense of being a viticulturalist? It's a space, I feel, in the wine industry that we don't celebrate enough. The winemakers tend to get all the press and the front pages and the sound bites, and the viticulturalists are working all year round. The winemakers work 3 weeks a year and then go to the Maldives on holiday for the rest of it. As viticulturalists, it's a space that is so fundamental to everything that we enjoy as winemakers, but it's also, for all of the hard work that you do, a space that does seem to be immensely rewarding.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing to be there from the morning to the evening, to see how the leaves turn when it gets hot, and see the smell of the soil. And no, it's really, really rewarding job. If you can call it a job, it feels more like almost like a religion than anything else. But I must tell you, things are changing. A lot of our top viticultures buy grapes from us. We are really privileged to sell amazing grapes to a lot of people, and the amount of time the winemakers spend in the vineyards these days are much more than I met the industry right in the beginning. When I got to the industry back in the day, the Helderberg weren't that known. So it was basically KWV and Distel and those guys that bought there. And these days, all these amazing winemakers are spending so much time in our vineyards, and I learn a lot from them. And it's amazing to see how the tide's turning. They're spending more time where everything starts. Yeah.
And I think you talk to so many of the winemakers, and that's a very similar philosophy. They're talking about how, yes, they have an impact in the cellars, and yes, they're translating the grapes into bottles, but without a true understanding of what's happening in the vineyards, they can never really have an entire grasp on what the potential of those vines is. And more and more, that relationship between viticulturalist and winemaker, which has always been, I think, pretty close, is getting closer and closer and closer. Is that a fair analysis of where that is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I always have this joke about the winemakers who's got the most footprints in the vineyard. I'll buy their grapes, or their wine, because you can only make a decision on when to harvest if you've been there like a few times before harvest. You need to see how these vines are reacting to the season. Each season is different. The vines are also feel the season like we did. Like this past season, it was this unbelievable, difficult season. We had this amazing build-up. It felt like this movie building up to become this unbelievable scene, and then it just started to rain. And we had to make a decision when we're going to cut. And some people had to wait. Some people cut before the rain, others after. But the guys that's been in the vineyard, that saw what's happening, that felt the grapes, that tasted the grapes before the rain and after the rain, that kind of thing. Those are the guys that made the right decisions. So yeah, no, the viticulturists and the winemakers are really getting together. It's about spending time with the vine. That's what it's all about. The vine's the main actor. We just need to spend time with him.
And the winners from all of that are those of us who are drinking the wine. Exactly. I think. All right. Lloyd, have we got you back there? Let's have one last crack at bringing Lloyd in. Can you hear us there, Lloyd? No, I think we are still struggling. So let's wrap up then with one of Lloyd's wines. I'm going to get your thoughts on this as a member of the Plett wine aristocracy. So this is a red wine in Plett. That'll raise an eyebrow or two. Lloyd described it before he left us. It's very much in the Rhone style. Some Syrah headlining this particular wine. What do you make of this one?
It's delicious.
That's always a good start.
Gentle.
It is. It's got a softness to it, doesn't it? And that's what you'd expect from this sort of climate and from this sort of wine, and possibly a precursor of some more red wines to come in this part of the world.
Is there Malbec in here?
I don't think there's Malbec. I think this is a bit of Mourvèdre in
Okay.
this, some Syrah and some Grenache. So the standard SMG from the Rhone Valley, inspired in that Plettenberg Bay area. Very Moorish indeed. And this is from 2021 and already drinking very softly and accessibly, which leads me just to say a big thank you for having us here
Wonderful
today.
to have you in Plettenberg Bay.
And I have to make it down more often. Come and stay
Well,
and experience.
you can stay with us.
I would love to. My final question for you: I come back. I'm going to come back well before this, but if I come back in 5 years' time, what am I experiencing? What for Newstead? What for Plett has developed and grown in those 5 years?
Well, we have some big players that have bought into the area, which I can't say yet, but it'll be interesting to see what their plan is. And I think you'll probably see where this road has been tarred recently. More people are buying. A lot of people are moving down from Johannesburg and trying their hand at wine, even if it's a small vineyard, 1 hectare, 2 hectares. So it'll be very interesting to see what they are producing. Top businessmen, retiring into little wine farms.
Sounds like a pretty good life. I'm staying at Emily Moon at the moment on the Bitu River, and I was flicking through a local magazine from Plett just this morning, and there must have been a good dozen or so wine farms, estates, producers who were mentioned. Such is the relative growth of Plett over the last little while, and I suspect it's going to head in the same direction. And if the wine continues in this sort of quality, then at an even greater speed. So thank you. It's been lovely coming down and joining you. And a big thank you to Francois as well, who has interrupted his training for the Vintners Cup, the winemakers surf championship, to join us. I know Lloyd has been on and off with us through the course of the show, but Lloyd, lovely to have you in part, and lovely to have your wine as well. And all I'll say to you is have a look out for the wines of Plett, not just being pleasantly surprised, but also getting a sense of where at the moment a still fairly small area is going to head, as you get an understanding of the varietals they're making, the style in which they're making them, and the quality thereof. And also keep a lookout for the Samaritan, only 1,100 bottles made. It's already double the price on the secondary market, and one to hang on to and enjoy. Francois, happy surfing for the rest of your holiday, and a well-deserved one. And Sue, thank you for having us here at Newstead, and I can only recommend a visit for wine tasting, or if you've got a bit more time, lunch and possibly a stay as well. That wraps us up for today. Where are we on Monday? Monday, we are going to be announcing the winner of our Boschendal competition. And so what you need to do, if you haven't by now, is get over to Norman Goodfellows, buy a bottle of the Nicholas or any non-vintage bubbles, and you could be flying down to the Cape to go and spend a luxury weekend at Boschendal wine tasting, with meals, with a picnic and horse riding if you are feeling up for it. It's a terrific prize, and you need to get into that competition by buying the Nicholas or the non-vintage bubbles at any Norman Goodfellows store online or through the Dan Really Likes Wine store. We'll have the Boschendal team on Monday. We will also have the Haute Cabrera team with a big announcement, and 1 or 2 others, to look out for that next week. And don't forget, next Thursday, if you're in Cape Town, please do join us at Culture for the Dan Really Likes Wine Takeover. For now, I've got rather a lot of wine to finish off. I'm in good company to do so. From Plettenberg Bay, the hottest, coolest new wine area on the planet. Lots of great wine to say goodbye from. We'll see you again on Monday. Cheers.
Cheers.
This is Boschendal Wine Estate, and this is going to be your home if you win one of the coolest prizes in wine this year. It's a majestic prize. Flights for 2 people down to the Cape if required, transfers out to Boschendal, 2 nights accommodation, lunch or dinner at both the deli and the Verf, a picnic if the weather allows, the opportunity to go horse riding, the chance to taste some of the finest vintages, and memories to post away on social media for months to come. How to win this incredible prize? Simply go shopping at Norman Goodfellows, either in-store, online, or through the Dan Really Likes Wine store, and buy any bottle of the Nicholas Red Blend or any bottle of bubbles. Do so until the end of April, and you could be on your way to Boschendal.